and welcome to Biz RoundUp. I am Tamiru Nimsat and we at Art Television bring you a collection of business highlights. Let's have a look at the headlines. Government holds Infotel exhibition to bolster the IT sector of the country. Ceylon Chamber of Commerce calls for a new economic model for Sri Lanka. US International Development Finance Corporation invests in Colombo Port. News in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the government is focused on building a new model of economy based on high competitiveness, digital transition, energy transition and transformation into a green economy. The President said this speaking at the International Climate Forum held in Colombo recently.
As we emerge from the economic crisis of debt restructuring and debt sustainability, the new model of the economy we look for and we be building will be based on highly competitiveness, digital transition, energy transition and transformation to a green economy. I mentioned this to some of the business leaders I met yesterday. I will discuss this with the leaders of political parties after the budget. But this is the path and the only path that is available to Sri Lanka. Building on this will be the agricultural modernization, the accelerated tourist program, amongst others. We have to identify our potential. Everyone says Sri Lanka is small. What's our chances? Being small has an advantage. So we have a large dry zone and our population is only 22 million. So we are going to have excess green energy, not merely solar, wind power, hydrogen, but is what we are now focusing on. And Sri Lanka at the moment do not have the expertise to make the plans. So we are reaching out to the multilateral development banks and to our bilateral partners to get that expertise to put together a new plan. We are in our transition to the green economy. I already presented the climate prosperity plan last year, and this year at COP28, we will bring the net zero plan. In keeping with the Secretary General's request and call to accelerate the implementation of the plans, we are looking at seeing whether we can reach net zero by 2040. It's not impossible. It can be done.
Speaking at the event, President Wickremesinghe announced that the government has allocated 600 acres of land overlooking the Kothmale Reservoir for the construction of the proposed International Climate Change University.
In Sri Lanka, as well as in other countries, we have now committed ourselves to establishing the International Climate Change University, ICCU, a common platform which will help us and all those nearby. I am talking with the Maldives government of the ability to have a small island center in Maldives. I would like this university to be an international stakeholder university, not a Sri Lankan university. We've already set apart 600 acres overlooking the Kothmale Reservoir for this university. When we look at the scenario, the capacity on climate finance and the discussions are limited to mainly to the north, to the multilaterals and a few of the larger voices such as China. Rest of us do not have that capacity. Since we are moving towards the green economy, we are also building, I said it's necessary to build up our capacity on climate financing, the whole range. Not merely the climate financing, also debt relief and financing and the other connected economic issues. Therefore, I put together the highest team possible, advisor on economic stabilization, the secretary to the Ministry of Finance, secretary, the governor of the central bank and secretary to the Ministry of Environment, together with a group. Not merely to look at Sri Lanka, but to be able to participate in the discussions that are taking place globally. Because this is one thing the global south lacks. We do not have that expertise, nor have we built it up in regard to climate finance.
The Infotel Information Technology Exhibition, organized by the Federation of Information Technology Industry Sri Lanka, kicked off at the Bandaranaike International Conference Hall on the 3rd of this month. This event themed Fueling the Digital Economy is being conducted under the auspices of the State Ministry of Technology and was held till the 5th of November.
During the event, FITI's chairman Indika D'Souza presented a commemorative memento to the President. The President then conferred awards to recognize the innovative contributions made by school children. The distinguished gathering included the Minister of Education, Susil Premajantha, State Minister for Technology Kanaka Herath, and prominent from the IT industry.
If you're looking at $16 billion, where is the market penetration? How do you achieve market penetration, what we are to what we want to be? There has to be a plan for market penetration, where we are going to work, how we are going to achieve it. Now, those are the issues that we have to address. And that has to be addressed again by the industry, by all of you. So I would expect the associations involved in this sector together to come up with a plan, a strategy for market penetration.
The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce called for a new economic model focused on export-led investment and tourism and facilitating the private sector as the engine of growth to build a sustainable business environment. The Ceylon Chamber made this call at the India-Sri Lanka Business Summit held in Colombo recently. The event brought together key figures including Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, Indian Minister of Finance Nirmala Sitharaman, High Commissioner of India Gopal Bagle. Chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Dumidda Hulangamuwa, stressed that Sri Lanka must not indefinitely rely on bilateral support from regional countries. Hulangamuwa emphasized the importance of an export-led investment approach to ensure the country's economic growth and stability. He highlighted the potential for increased trade with India, especially as the world's economic focus shifts towards South Asia. Minister Sitharaman urged Sri Lanka to explore new avenues for economic sustainability and growth, such as green energy and pharmaceuticals. She also stressed the significant role that digitalization played in India's economic landscape, including ensuring transparency, efficiency, and inclusivity. The Vice Chairman of the Ceylon Chamber, Krishan Balendra, further emphasized the importance of tourism as the short-term solution to increase foreign exchange earnings. Stay tuned. We will return after this short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. The US International Development Finance Corporation announced it has committed more than $500 million to support the development of a deep-water shipping container terminal in the port of Colombo, Sri Lanka. The port is set to provide critical infrastructure for the South Asian region. A media event for the agreement signing was held in Colombo this week.
The new terminal reflects TFC's commitment to financing high-quality infrastructure that supports its partners' development needs, invest in local communities, and is respectful of local financial conditions. U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Shang, said that this financing is symbolic of the United States' long-standing commitment to the development and well-being of the people of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka regaining its economic footing will further our shared vision for a free and prosperous Indo-Pacific. DFC is working with world-class sponsors John Keel's Holdings and Adani Ports and Special Economic Zones Limited. These companies' local experience and high-quality standards are expected to help support local jobs and make this project a long-term, sustained success for the Indo-Pacific. The new terminal will cater to growing economics in the Bay of Bengal, taking advantage of Sri Lanka's prime position on major shipping routes and proximity of these expanding markets.
Private partnership that helps make a difference for people. And I really can't think of any project that's a better exemplar of that than the project we're here today to celebrate. A project that creates jobs for local communities. A project that supports economic growth at a time of high need for economic growth. A project that makes a difference for the national economy and truly for the international economy by having more capacity for deep water transshipment, the realities in this region, and for global trade make this a critical addition to our global infrastructure.
The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce has raised concerns regarding the proposed increase of the value-added tax to 18% from 15%. The Ceylon Chamber released a statement pertaining to this matter recently.
While recognizing the government's commitment to revenue enhancement in alignment with IMF obligations, the Chamber said it is imperative to evaluate the broader economic ramifications of such a decision. The Chamber pointed out that as consumer spending plays a pivotal role in our GDP growth, there's a significant risk that this tax increase could lead to a further decline in consumption. The Chamber said that such hikes may inadvertently lead to further economic contraction, potentially offsetting the intended revenue gains. The Ceylon Chamber strongly recommended that the government explore alternative fiscal strategies, such as expenditure rationalization. It emphasized that challenges such as the Inland Revenue Department issuing tax default notices spanning several decades, highlighting the inefficiencies of the current system. The Chamber further pointed out that the Revenue Administration Management Information System demands further enhancement for maximum efficacy. It also said that a thorough digital transformation leveraging systems like RAMES is crucial for streamlining processes and optimizing revenue collection.
Minister of Industries and Health Ramesh Patirana said that the government is working towards abolishing policy directions that hinder the capacity of the industrialists in the country. Minister Ramesh Patirana said this while speaking at the inauguration of the 6th Research Symposium of the Industrial Technology Institute in Colombo recently.
We've been going through a bit of an economic struggle last year, one of the worst ones since we gained independence from Britishers in 1948. Thankfully, we are gradually coming out from that situation. I must thank, on behalf of the Minister of Industry, Sri Lankan industrialists did their best to ensure that they produced little more to ensure that they fill the lacuna created by the import restrictions, and also they managed to export little more. At that time, what we realized was we need to ensure that we need to further strengthen the industrial sector of the country, for which the Minister of Industry is fully committed to ensure at that time to partly protect by a ring fencing mechanism, and also in the long run to ensure that our products become competitive in the local market as well as in the global market. In that regard, the policy direction that we try to develop, liaising with the finance ministry, is something important for us. We have realized certain issues, like when the finished product is imported to Sri Lanka free of duty, certain times Sri Lankan industries have to pay duty for their raw material, which is quite unfair. So such policy directions need to be addressed, and we are in constant dialogue with the policymakers of the country, including especially with the Minister of Finance, to ensure that we create a level playing field of the country.
Stay tuned. We will return after this short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. Opposition MP and Chairman of the Committee of Public Finance, Dr. Harsha Da Silva, pressed the need for reforms and emphasized the importance of revenue rationalization while ensuring fairness in the tax system. The Member of Parliament said this speaking at a press event held in Colombo recently.
Economic reforms across the board, public sector reform. So reform, I think, is the key word, and without reform, if people say we can change the course of this nation, I don't agree. So if people say, look, taxes are too high, we agree that it is painful. But what can a government do if you have only 8% of GDP as taxes? And don't forget, it was 20% in this country during the time of Mr. Premadas. It was something like 17% when Madam Kumartunga was president. How can we spend on education and healthcare and things like that with such little revenue? So you have to raise revenue. So revenue rationalization is essential. What I sort of disagree is the total lack of empathy. Absolutely no empathy. Yes, reforms have to be done, but you must understand that there is the other side of the equation. Right? There are people, human beings, who are unable to make ends meet.
Speaking at the event, Harsha Da Silva said bloated state sector should be addressed through measures such as golden handshakes, privatization and other key reforms. He also emphasized the need for a funded retirement plan to avoid the burden of providing pensions on the government.
When I go down to the Parliament library and make my own photocopy, they look at me in an odd way. Sir, I get a peon to make your photocopy. Why do I need a peon to make my photocopy? Am I incapable of making my own photocopy? Right, so I think there's a mental block also that we think that there have to be peons to make our tea, right, make our photocopy. We don't need those guys in the first place, that's another matter. But how do you shrink this? So, golden handshake, privatization, then demobilization of the military. I mean, people don't want to talk about this. The politicians don't want to talk about this. We have the 25th highest military per capita or something in the world. If you look at the budget allocation for the military and the police, it's something like 500 billion. That's more than health, more than education. Both public sector and private sector must have a funded pension scheme. We have an unfunded pension scheme. We pay nothing to the pension.
Delivering its mid-year review of the 2023 budget proposals and implementation, Verity Research alleged that the government is refusing to inform the public on what it is doing with people's tax money. The independent think tank said transparency and accountability have statistically taken a turn to the worst, and the country is setting itself up for failure if it doesn't address these issues. The Verity Research Group expressed these opinions at a press conference held in Colombo last week.
Verity observed 25 budget promises for its review and said that 68% of these projects offered inadequate data to the public, whilst 48% had no data on progress made. The think tank said these 25 projects had seen an allotment of over 49.3 billion rupees, and accordingly there was a lack of accountability for 47.7 billion rupees spent. They added, despite being bound to report on how public funds are spent and the progress of projects, only the Ministry of Fisheries had listed programs and progress reports. Furthermore, Verity reports the National Budget Department at the Ministry of Finance could not list owners for 44% of the chosen programs. It was observed that successive budgets from 2014 have allocated funds to set up new export processing zones, but no such facilities have been set up as of yet. It also opined that the lack of fiscal transparency is a key factor that contributed to the present crisis and loss of credibility of the government, both at home and abroad. Verity emphasized that transparency about progress of budget proposals could help to address concerns and improve Sri Lanka's chances of a sustainable economic recovery.
With that, we wind up for today. For this and more, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. See you tomorrow with State of Business at 7:45 p.m. Take care and good night.